Hello, and welcome to the Market Bull podcast. Please note, topics and stocks discussed in this podcast are not financial or investment advice. Today on the show, I spoke with Alex Passmore, the CEO of Ora Gold, which is listed on the ASX under code OAU. Alex talked about what has been involved in the restructuring of the company since he joined in March of 2023. Alex looked at the reasons behind the capital raise that was completed earlier this year and what the funds are intended to be used for. We explored the projects at Ora Gold and the plans now in place to develop the projects. Alex also discussed the macro outlook for gold and what this means for small cap to mid cap businesses in the sector. I hope you enjoy listening. Hello and welcome to the Market Bull podcast. I'm your host, Ben Kostrich, and joining me on the show today is the CEO of Ora Gold, Alex Passmore. It's listed on the ASX under code OAU, and it's his first time on the show, but I'm happy to have him here. So welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Ben. Pleasure to be here.
So a little bit about yourself. It's a recently new role. You were appointed CEO on the 9th of March, 2023. So you're probably just immersing yourself into, as we said, a lot of work and everything, but how did you get into the mining world and a little bit of your backstory and history before arriving at Ora Gold?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. So I've been involved in the industry either on the technical side or on the finance side for over 20 years. I'm originally a geologist with a finance degree. Haven't practiced proper geology for a while, but still enjoy getting out into the field and getting amongst it all and getting right into the technical detail whenever I can. So I started with a company called Western Mining, which was a big company, well known in Australia. Western Mining Corporation, WMC, a lot of people know it. It was very big in the nickel and the gold space in Western Australia, and also had the Olympic Dam project over in South Australia and a couple of mines in Queensland. So I started there as a graduate in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then transitioned into the finance industry in the early 2000s. So worked as a mining analyst, valuing companies and valuing projects for stockbroking firms to provide investment advice for their clients. So most of my career was spent at a company called Passmore or Patterson Securities, as it was then known, and then more recently that's become part of Canaccord Genuity. So know a lot of the brokers, from that mining, space, and the guys that are invested in the junior and mid cap space. In terms of Ora, following a sort of fairly lengthy career in the finance industry, I then moved to the industry side. That was just a natural transition for me. Getting back into the project side. I felt that was the right thing to do after so many years in the finance industry. And so I've been on the board of several junior companies and mid cap companies, and most recently was with a company called Rocks Resources, and brought the You and Me Gold project into that company, and then watched that project develop quite strongly, and so that was really enjoyable. And then looking for a new challenge late last year, as that project was moving into more the engineering phase. I was in contact with the Ora Gold board, and they were looking for a new leadership. They had a great project out at Meekatharra, the gold project, and we after several conversations and me doing due diligence, I agreed to join, and then we recapped the company, and here we are in early 2023.
Yeah, as I said, I was going through your experience, and you've done a hell of a lot, and we were saying before starting that you're a Perth boy, and you've been here, and naturally the allure of Perth is you go into the mining side and yourself the finance side. But Ora Gold, I mean, you've been brought in to really help with the restructure and realignment of the company. But can you give us a bit of story about your role now and what you're trying to achieve as the CEO?
Yeah, sure. So Ora Gold has actually been listed for a long time. It used to be called Thunderlara Exploration. It had a variety of different projects around the country. It spent a long time being focused on uranium in the Northern Territory, and it had various levels of success trading assets over the last 20 or 30 years. It was founded by Phil Crabb, and Phil wanted to retire. He's well into his 80s, so it was fair enough that he
About
does
time
retire.
now he wants
Yeah,
to. Yep.
and so I was brought on to I guess put a renewed focus onto Garden Gully, onto the Garden Gully Gold project, sort out the balance sheet because Phil had lent money in over the years, or over recent times. And so we undertook a debt to equity swap, and also an underwritten rights issue, and got the balance sheet to a clean position. So my role coming on was to facilitate that, to then build the technical team out, and then to see where we can take the the high grade Crown Prince prospect, which is part of Garden Gully in particular, see how we can advance that and hopefully get it into production.
Okay, and that was the point there. You mentioned you've got your flagship project, and I mean, you going in doing your due diligence. What was your attraction to even taking on this opportunity and pursuing this potential opportunity that you've got?
So the project is high grade. It hangs together nicely. It's in Western Australia. It's near Meekatharra. It's got good infrastructure in terms of support and supply. It's on granted the key projects, and in particular Crown Prince prospect, which is the most advanced in the broader Garden Gully project, is on a granted mining lease. Native title agreements are in place, so there's really not a lot in terms of long-term items between us and production. So yes, we need to declare a reserve, we need to do some engineering studies, but in terms of native title and mining lease and that sort of thing, we're well advanced. And those things can take a substantial amount of time, in some cases years. So that's what I really liked about about the high likelihood of production here, and also the fact that the grade and the economics of the project look good. There's also a lot of growth to be had here. So there's only a modest resource published currently, 55,000 ounces at just over 3.6 grams, which is very subscale in terms of that part of the world. But that's just a reflection of needing more drilling and exploring along strike, and we've recently had some success in that, and so we're looking forward to a good resource update in the next month or two.
Okay, and you're saying you come in to help restructure and realign it, and you've talked about building this technical team. I mean, how has that all been going in regards to getting the right people involved and just building that out? Because as you said, you've probably got your checklist of what you need to accomplish, but I can imagine it's one of those roles where it just keeps growing every day and you never can quite tick off more than you want to achieve. But how's that all going?
That's a very accurate description, actually. You start the day with a to-do list and get through the top part of it and add 20 more things down to the bottom of it. The employment market for geos, fieldies, and engineers, but particularly geos and fieldies, that's the zone that we're in, is still tight in WA. And so, you've got to carefully, go about how you select those people, but also, if at the moment, it's just hard to get, a deep pool of people as well. We're finding that drillers and drilling availability has eased up a bit. So that's good. And also turnaround time in terms of assay labs has eased up a bit compared to, say, last year. So that they're all, that's good, but the personnel side of things is still tight. We're aligning our team with the stage of the project. So we are still, we're still a junior, we're still microcap gold, but we've got aspirations to be a mid-cap gold, and grow the resource. And so we're adding people as we need and technical expertise as we need, and that includes consultants and experts.
And we're saying Ora Gold, I mean, it encompasses that you're primarily looking for gold and developing gold resources, but I know you've got a few other projects that are also on the books that you're looking to, also get into. Can you give a bit more information onto those two other projects that you've got?
Yeah, sure. So they're going back into the company's history. So this is back into Thunderlara exploration days, but we've got a couple of minority interests in joint ventures. So we've got the Red Boar joint venture with Sandfire, which is a copper project just near Degrussa, and there's a 15% interest in that, we're looking forward to seeing how that plays out. There's there's various processes underway that might transfer to new ownership, but so there's that interest. That's an interesting high grade but modest scale copper project. So it's really for someone who is taking on the DeGrussa asset or whoever owns the DeGrussa asset. It's for them to look at and see if that fits into their production schedule. But we've happily got an economic interest there. And then we've got the Keller Creek project, which is originally a nickel project, but covers all commodities. A nickel project up in the Kimberley with Panoramic, and that's 20% free carried interest. So Panoramic announced a couple of weeks ago they're drilling a large graphite horizon and mineralisation out at Keller Creek. So we watch that with interest as well.
Bit of activity.
Yeah, that's right. It's better to have activity on these projects than not. But yeah, they're minority interests, and hence the gold project at Garden Gully is very much the focus.
I mean, going back to the Garden Gully, you, as you said, you've got some results that are pending, and clearly there's a bit more work to be done. But what excites you about that project for the next 6 to 12 months, and what are you really looking to optimize out of that resource?
Sure. So within Garden Gully, there's several prospects. So the advanced ones that we should talk about are Crown Prince, then Abbots, which is in the northern end of the belt, and then Abernathy, which is in the southern end of the belt. So the Abbots Greenstone Belt is near Meekatharra. It sits off to the west of the Great Northern Highway, and it is its own greenstone basin, which is where you typically find most of the gold and also nickel ore bodies in Western Australia. The project is bounded by a really major shear, the Meekatharra structural zone and the Abernathy shear, and that's on the eastern edge of the Abbots Greenstone Belt. The geological structures that run through that shear come up into the Crown Prince ore body, and so there's scope for that to be really, really something special. So what we see at the moment is very high grades, laminated quartz veins, clean metallurgy, and scale, will hopefully come with drilling. So we've got an ore body that's 400 meters in aggregate strike at the moment, probably 5 to 8 meters in width. We're reporting some really high grades. So, the average grades that we've reported over the last couple of months are more indicative of where we think it can be. So there's some pretty spectacular grades. I'll refer people to the release, but the various releases, but, anywhere between sort of 5 and 15 grams, as an overall average in the ore body. And it's open at depth and open along strike. So that has substantial growth potential from the current 55,000 ounces. That's just a resource that's based on very shallow drilling. Isn't reflective of the success that we're seeing in the last few drilling programs.
And you mentioned earlier when you said it's almost got this appeal of checklist that all the work's been done already, and one of the points was the infrastructure. I mean, how important is good infrastructure in an area like that to sort of start leading onwards?
Well, it means that, so having the history of Meekatharra nearby, so it means several things. So the tenure can be quite piecemeal, small tenements, and we've managed to aggregate a lot of tenements over a long period of time. So you don't get vast tracts of unpegged land like you might at some of the more frontier exploration areas. So there is a history here. It's really helpful that it's an old gold mining area, because you actually see old workings from 100, 150 years ago, and they can be a good indicator, for modern day exploration. You've got to remember the gold price and the circumstances at 120 years ago was very different to now. So, quite often a lot of small, high-grade underground mines can fit into a modern-day open pit. So the infrastructure and the history is it's interesting. So, the benefits of being near the Great Northern Highway, surrounded by existing producers. So West Gold and Nearest with their Bluebird gold processing plants, that's 1.6 to 1.8 million tons. They've then got another processing plant, Tuckabianna to the south, and another one, Fortnum, to the north. There's Andy Well, a gold processing plant that's on care and maintenance, that's 25 kilometres from us. To the north, there's Burnacurra, which is a smaller mill relative to the West Gold ones, but about the same size as Andy Well, so 500,000 tons. That's around 50 kilometres to the southeast of our project. So we've got either idled milling capacity or existing operating milling capacity near us, power, water, accommodation, food, all those sorts of things that you otherwise need to provide if you're out doing more
Remote
frontier
areas or whatever.
exploration.
Yeah.
If you're out in the Patterson province, where where some explorers are, looking for giant copper and gold projects, which is a fantastic geological province. You are out in the middle of the desert,
Yeah, the
with
handicappers. The isolation.
and it costs a lot to set up an exploration effort out there. But I guess being in an area like Mika, once you've dealt with the small tenement holdings and you've got through the native title issues and those sorts of things, the infrastructure is a real advantage. But early on it could it can be difficult to get a land position because it's a historical area. So we're past that now. The infrastructure is an advantage.
Yeah, and that ties into a point that we didn't touch on, but when you were appointed, you've recently done a raise. You raised 8.5 million, and now you've got the funding, you've got the cash in the bank. Well, what's the plan to accelerate the growth, and what are you going to use the capital for?
So since the raising, we've been drilling. So we've undertaken a pretty substantial RC program. We're currently and we've released results from that. Then we're currently diamond drilling at the moment with DDH1 out on site. We're on about our 5th deep diamond hole, and that's looking really good. Then at the same time, we've also been doing scout drilling with air core hammer, which you might call slimline RC. So it's a very good way, but slightly cheaper than RC to understand the geology just near our mineralized zones. So we've been busy doing that, and we're also recutting the resource at Crown Prince, and building up the team. So the money that was raised was around half of it was for balance sheet cleanup, and paying debt off, and then the rest has been deployed going towards exploration, and we're still well funded for what we want to do for the time being.
And I mean, the gold sort of outlook, it's an interesting one, because if you look at the far end, the top tier side of it, you've got huge companies, you've got Newcrest, Newmont, the merger, there's a lot of activity, and then you've got the small caps in the exploration and looking to prove up resources. I mean, where do you see the overall outlook for gold going? Because I always look at it and I go, look, gold's always got this appeal, but I always go, well, where do we use it? How do we use it? What do we really value it for?
So I guess there it has been an interesting space. So yes, you've got the Newmont Newcrest takeover. More recently, just close to home in our belt, Westgold has bid for Musgrave.
Yes.
And so that's not too far from us. That's just to the south of us. So there is still producers seeing either other producers or near producers as having, as offering good value. And I think that's reflective of the producers are seeing good opportunities for cash margins, and the markets are quite tough with a backdrop of increasing rates, and that really taking the heat, particularly out of the retail investor end of the market. That's meaning that the junior and the explorers are, it's hard to get capital, so the valuation that explorers and developers are getting is squeezed, and yet the producers are making good margins and good money. So there's an opportunity for the people that are making, are in production and making money off a very high Aussie gold price, to take advantage of, adding to their bank of ounces via, prudent M&A, and M&A that makes sense, or that can be used to feed a nearby, the mill of the acquirer, or give them sufficient scale in a certain area. So that divergence in value between producers and developers, I think, is going to be here for a while, and that's why the M&A cycle is starting to heat up. I'm sure there's plenty of investment bankers carrying around pitch books on lots of different scenarios. So that it really is a good time to be doing that. So I think that in terms of the producer outlook, the cost escalation that we've seen has probably slowed. I'll just see that from at the smaller end of the market, you can see that drillers and other people are slightly easier to get than they were 2 years ago. So I suspect the producers have gone through that crunch of big capex increases above what they originally thought, and big opex increases to ongoing production, and now things are settling down, and they're dealing with a known cost structure, and then going, well, okay, well, how can I now grow my ounce base and my production? So yeah, I think I think the outlook for the Aussie gold sector is M&A to continue. The margins that we're seeing, with the current high Aussie gold price, are likely to be enjoyed with the, with costs, becoming a more well-known factor. The gold price itself, the Aussie gold price has held up, and is very strong. It's hovering around $3,000 an ounce. I mean, that reflects, the natural buffer that the Aussie dollar has provided, coming off against the US, despite the interest rates in the US going up, and that's usually negative for gold.
Well, and I think the US have got their meetings either whilst we're recording in the coming hours or even the coming days, and we'll see how that all unfolds. But gold has just been accelerating and holding this, this top tier level. And I mean, from the commodity, the spot price, you're waiting for it to break out, which then again feeds into more gold activity, more buzz. But it really comes down to, where are the opportunities and who's doing what?
And real rates are still negative, right? So inflation's beating interest rates. So when real rates are negative, that's okay for gold. It's when the cost of holding gold, is very, very high because rates are well higher than inflation. That's when it starts to hurt.
And I mean, yourself, have you always been involved in gold, or have you been involved a whole commodity sort of broad ranging of things? Or what's been your
whole commodity spectrum, over the years. So, and financing and covering as an analyst, and when I was in more in the industry as a geologist, I was in nickel as well, and bulks. But gold's a fascinating sector. It's also the appealing thing about gold is when you go mining, you're producing a finished product. You're producing gold bars, gold doré that then almost finished product that you then selling to a gold refiner like the Perth Mint or or one of the others. So I think that takes a lot of risk out of the downstream that people quite sometimes forget. It is really nice to be close to a finished product. So the price that you see in the market quoted as the gold price is very close to what a gold producer actually receives. It's not, you're not selling to an intermediary. So that makes it easier to finance, that makes it easier to understand, it lowers the downstream risk and all of those sorts.
Because I keep flashing back to, again, your experience and coming in, and now clearly you've got a role, you've got an agenda and what you want to accomplish, but you said you're building out the board and the team, but I mean, who else is involved in this group that you've got that's building this new direction for Ora Gold, and a little bit of insight into who they are?
So Rick Crabb is the chairman. So he's well known. He's on several large boards. Leo Lithium comes to mind. Eagle Mountain. And a range of others. But Rick's been a successful corporate lawyer in the Australian mining scene for a long time, and so he offers plenty of experience. Mal Randall's on the board. So Mal's also originally ex Rio Tinto, CRA Rio Tinto. And has been in the industry for a very long time, and and the network and the experience is very valuable. And then the board's rounded out by Frank DeMarte, who's very capable finance guy. So that's the board. In terms of the team that we're building out, well, as I was saying to you earlier, it's tough at the junior end. We're building out. We're building out experienced. We are building out the experience. Geos and so forth. So and then calling in experts as we need as well.
Yeah, and given that area, I mean, you've got a lot of other groups, as you touched on, in that surrounding area, at least in the flagship project. I mean, the question I always get, and it's always interesting to see, because I mean, you're in there as a small cap, and there's big guys around you. Is there much collaboration, or just going down to the pub and having chats and sharing ideas or resources, or pointing out different things? Or what's it like being out in these areas where
there is collaboration? So in our area, I was speaking to another MD the other day just to borrow some of his earth moving equipment, and not his earth moving equipment, but the contractor who is organising drill pads and rehab and that sort of stuff. So we do talk, we do share ideas, but everyone looks after their own patch. There's no doubt. So, yeah. So in our area, in the Meekatharra area, there are 5 or 6 juniors surrounded. West Gold's undeniably the sort of the big guy in the area. And the juniors are all racing hard to get big resources and see if they can get them up and running. So we do all talk, and we are all relatively friendly, and also trying to be the most successful junior in that
Yeah.
area at the same time, I suppose.
Yeah, it leads into the Australian
Yeah,
sort of culture
yeah.
of helping your mates out, helping your
Yeah.
friends out, but at the end of the day, you're
Yeah,
there for a certain purpose.
you're still separate companies. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So this is a little bit left field, but from a devil's advocate position in the gold setup and where's gold going? I mean, what can you see potentially being something that holds it back or stops gold from accelerating?
So, in terms of the macro outlook for gold, it's gold is well accepted to be it's essentially a currency. But it's a currency that doesn't yield anything, as in it doesn't pay an interest rate like government bonds do. So when interest rates around the world are increasing, that's generally bad for gold, because the cost of holding the currency that's not paying you any interest is going up. However, gold is also a hedge against inflation. So when inflation is rising faster than interest rates, it's the value of gold is going up faster than the interest rate. So it is somewhat protected. The other key factor for the Aussie gold scene is that the Australian dollar often provides a bit of a buffer to the Aussie dollar gold price. So really what we aim to sell, or what any gold producer in Australia is selling, is gold in Aussie dollar terms, because it then pays its bills to its employees and contractors in Aussie dollars. So the Aussie price is the US price divided by the Aussie dollar. So if the US dollar has been strong, which it has been as the interest rate cycle over there, goes hard, then the Aussie dollar gold price is pushed up by a depreciating currency. So that helps. So we're somewhat buffered there. So long answer to that question, but I think there's counteracting factors at play, and so the gold outlook is actually pretty good.
Okay. And I mean, rounding out, you touched on before taking on a new challenge as one of the draw cards to taking on this position. I mean, given yourself and your own motivation, it's always interesting to speak with CEOs that have done so much and they've been in so many different places, but they want to get something that really challenges them. I mean, what's your drive really now in your position, and what keeps you focused on pushing this? Is it your own drive, or I mean, where does it come from?
Well, it's enjoyable. It's fun. And so creating value. Aiming to fund the project, get it into production. It's very enjoyable to put the spotlight on a good project. And progress it and create value. And then also, you get enjoyment out of, creating, there's opportunities for people. There's opportunities for people to grow. There's, you bring on in some cases, graduates. You're training them up. You're training geos up. So that is actually, that's really rewarding and good fun.
And handing over to the next generation.
Yeah, that's right. Watching all the millennials out in the bush struggling away.
Having it go away from their mobile phone.
That's right.
Oh my. And again, literally you've taken it on. There's a lot going on, and naturally there's going to be a lot of news coming out, and you're going to be having a pretty heavy on drilling sort of program. But for listeners that want to learn more about Ora and follow the company and what's happening, where can they go and where can they access the information?
So our website is a good place to start. That will shortly be updated. We have a Twitter page, a LinkedIn page. So by all means, follow us on there. And then obviously the regular ASX announcements. So OAU is the code.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I saw the investor presentation and you have a little interview about it. So I'd recommend listeners having a check out of that. But yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to speak with me on the show today. And yeah, looking forward to hearing what's progressing in the next 6 to 12 months and naturally seeing what's happening in the gold commodities and the M&A, because there'll be naturally ongoing discussions and activity in that area. So thank you for speaking on the show.
Pleasure, Ben. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Market Bull podcast. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow the Market Bull on our socials at Twitter and LinkedIn by searching the Market Bull. You can also subscribe to our newsletter on the website by visiting www.themarketbull.com.au.